What's up, Nerdyverse? I'm Daddy Louie, and in this video, we are taking a look at a game called Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade, so stick around. Before we get started, if you're new to our channel and you want to see more content like this, start now by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Alright, so before we deep dive into the game of the week this week, let's just clear the elephant in the room. Yes, I have shaven. My sad face is now naked because I had to go back to work this week, and my I guess coronavirus quarantine is partially lifted now, so no more scruffy beard, which makes me very sad. But more excitingly, in case you hadn't noticed the boxes behind me, we are moving. So soon we will be in a different house, and I will have a different studio. But in the meantime, you may see some boxes and stuff in the background. And I apologize for that, but I just ain't got space to put them anywhere else. Anyway, moving on, let's get started with the game of the week, which is Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade. It is published by Japanime Games. It is 1 to 4 player deck building game. It is for ages 14 and up and takes between 30 and 60 minutes to play, depending on how many players and how you take your time. So it does have a solo mode, which we will talk about in a minute. For those of you who don't know, deck building games are games in which all players start with the exact same deck of cards, and they are usually resource cards that you use to purchase other cards that are in a general pool, a generic pool for everyone to purchase, and you then discard those cards, and when your deck runs out, you shuffle your discard into your deck, hence giving yourself the powerful cards that you just paid for. And then you go back and forth like that. And that's the basic premises of how deck builders work. This deck builder in particular is themed around Cowboy Bebop, which is an older anime, but a classic that everybody knows and loves. And it is also different from most other deck builders that I've played because you actually travel around from planet to planet in space, taking out criminals and capturing criminals and letting them not escape, getting victory points for doing those things, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins. But the question is this game any good? Well, let's go down to the table, check it out, and you can decide for yourself. Okay, so once inside the box, we have lots of really, really cool components. Everything in this game is very well made. We'll go over the ingredients, the components really, really quickly. First things first, you have your cards. You have a giant stack of cards. That is your the pool of cards that you're going to be purchasing to make your cards better. There are 4 different color type cards. There's purple, orange, yellow, and blue. I will talk more about those in a moment. You also have your starter cards. Each player has 10 starter cards depending on which character that you start with. So, for example, if you start with Spike, you would get 6 generic cards that everybody gets, as well as 4 specific Spike cards. The specific cards are exactly the same in every way except their color, and I will talk about the colors and their importance in just a minute. You also have some wound cards, or some damage cards, so whenever you do take damage, which does happen in the game, you would draw a card, and that card is put into your deck, and it usually has negative effects that, bog your deck down. That's why they're bad. And then you have the criminal cards. So there's 6 generic criminal cards, or basic criminal cards, that you start the game off with. And then there's more from there, all leading up to the final guy at the end. Okay, we also have 2 boards. These boards are for the, this first board is for the deck of cards that we have. It also has some markings here. This basically just says that you'll always have 5 cards out, and then if you pay 2 fuel, you can recycle those 5 cards and draw 5 new ones. We'll talk about how that works a little bit later. And then this is a board for the damage cards to go onto. You don't necessarily have to use these, but they do add a little bit to the board themselves, or the game area when you're playing. You also have 4 character boards. There are 4 characters to play in the game. Like I said, you have Jet, Ed, Faye, and Spike. All these boards are identical except for the abilities that are listed. Each character has their own abilities that one is unique to them, and the other can be used by another player if you guys are on the same planet. Again, I'll explain more about that later. There's also a spot for your victory point tokens, as well as your fuel. It also comes with these little acrylic cubes that you keep track of where your fuel level is at. Next, we have the planets themselves. There's 3 planets. Each one has a space for the criminals that you're going after, as well as how much fuel it costs for you to travel to that planet. All the planets start out at 1, and then there's different mechanics in the game that makes them go up harder to get to. And then, of course, there's also one for the Bebop itself. This is where you start and where you finish after each time a criminal is captured. So that's kind of like your home base, if you will. You also have tokens. You have tokens for each planet, as well as some victory tokens. I already talked about the acrylic for the fuel. You also have a big show board, which stands up really nicely, like that. And a really big shout out to the developers who made the box insert. I'll talk about that a little more, but like, you don't have to break this down when you stick it back in the box, which is really nice. And this is where your criminal cards will go. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the miniatures. So the game comes with miniatures and standees. So if you paint your miniatures like I did, you don't have to use them if you're afraid something's going to happen to them. You can use standees instead. There are 5 standees, 1 for each of the miniatures. I don't ever use these because I want to use my miniatures, but I can understand how some people might not want to. But I just want to show you the detail and the awesomeness of these miniatures. They paint it up really, really nicely. Whenever you have board games like this, usually the quality of the miniatures that comes with it is not very good. But in this case, I was pleasantly surprised. So I didn't paint them all because I wanted to show you. They come in gray plastic, just like Jet does here. But you can paint them up. I just used soap and water to wash it off with a toothbrush, get all the film off, primed it in white, and then painted it up. Painted really quickly, and the details are really, really nice. I also painted up Faye just so you could see what they look like. So given that this is a deck building game, let's first take a look primarily at how the cards work. Like I mentioned earlier, the cards come in 4 main colors. You have orange, blue, purple, and yellow. And there are some cards that have other colors down at the bottom, and I'll explain why that is in just a second. But in deck builders, you're going to play cards from your hand. You get a resource pool, and then you have to spend those resources to buy new cards. Those cards get discarded and then shuffled into your deck to make your deck stronger. So each of the main characters have their own colors, and when playing cards, if you play 2 cards that have matching colors, then you get the bonus effect. So let me explain how that works. So let's say, for example, I had this card here, this good news card. It also has a yellow ability down here at the bottom. Let's say I also have this yellow card here, which does not have an extra ability at the bottom. If I played this yellow card and then played this orange card, I would get the added bonus of the yellow card down there at the bottom. So this would give me 1 clue, which is added to my pool. I'll explain how clues and damage work in a minute. Like this is 1 action point or damage point, and this is 1 clue or investigation token, which is used to capture the criminals. But those would basically go into a pool that I could then spend, and whatever I don't spend by the end of the turn it goes away. So Like this card has an extra ability that says you could pay 2 fuel from your character card to gain an extra 3 gold. And gold's what's used to purchase these. The gold cost is up here in the top right corner. So on a turn, I can play cards and I can buy cards. That's 2 of the actions that I can take. So let's take a look at what a starting hand might look like. I have 3 for a few woolongs. These give me gold. That's what these are. And then I can also pay gold to get rid of these cards. And I might want to do that to flesh out these basic cards from my deck in order to make room for the stronger cards during late game. But for now, I would play all 5 of these cards. It gives me 5 gold, 1 per. Also get a clue marker, which I could use to do an investigation on one of the planets. I'll explain that in a minute. I can also move a character, 1 non-player character, for free. And I'll explain why moving characters works a little bit later. But for now, we're really just looking at the gold. I have 5 gold. So I'm going to play those cards and then look here and see what I can buy for 5 gold. I can buy this card here, Anger Issues. It is costs 5 gold, but that would be all my gold. I could buy this 4 cost card here. However, I would have a gold left over, and gold does not carry over. I lose it. So it may make more sense for me to buy a 2 cost card. I have 2 here, and hope that the next card that I flip over is a 3 cost card to maximize that 5 gold that I have. So I will go ahead and buy this. Makes it interesting, and I like this because it gives me this extra blue bonus ability down here when I play blue cards. We already know that I have blue cards in my deck because I'm playing as Spike. It also gives me fuel and gold, so this is a pretty good card. I'm spending 2 of my 5 gold to buy it, and it gets discarded. I immediately flip over the top card, and voila, it's like I planned it. We have a 3 cost card here, which I can then buy immediately. It wouldn't necessarily be the best purchase because I don't have any red cards yet, but that would make me want to keep my eye on this one for my next purchase. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that. I would then flip over this, another 5 cost card, and that's 2 of the actions I could do. I've spent all my gold. I don't really have anything else I can do, so I would go into the end of my turn, which would be discarding any cards I didn't play, and then drawing 5 new cards. And I only have 5 cards left, so I have these 5 in my hand. When it comes back to me, we would basically do it again, right? I would spend these. This would give me 3 fuel in action, which I'll talk about in a minute, and 3 gold. So I'm going to play all that. I would increase my fuel. Let me get a fuel token here. Everybody starts at 1, and then I would go up to 4, because I've got 3 showing here, plus 3 gold when I discard. There's nothing here that costs 3, so I will go ahead and buy this 2 cost card. Maybe there'll be a 1. I'm not actually sure if there's any 1s. It's a 4, and that's kind of the end of my turn. I don't have anything else to do. I don't have any cards left in my draw deck, so these all get shuffled up. And now I'm hoping to see some of those cards that I purchased when I draw my new hand. So I would draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. And look at that. We have 2 of the new cards that I just purchased in the last 2 turns. And that's really at the core how buying and playing cards work in this game and in most other deck builders. Alright, so now that we understand how the deck building part of the game works, let's look at how the rest of the game works. So like I said, in order to win the game, you need to be the player at the end of the game who has the most victory points. And you gain victory points by doing things with these criminals, basically. So there are 3 planets in the game. Each planet has an assigned criminal at random, as well as some more criminals that will come out over here from the big shop board later on in the game. No matter how many players you're playing with, whether it be 1 to 4, all 4 characters all start on the Bebop. And the reason for that is because even the non-player characters can be moved, as we saw with one of the cards earlier, to a planet that you're on, and then you can activate one of their abilities if they are on the same planet as you. So if I'm playing a Spike and I want to use Jet's ability on my card, I could spend a card that has the power to move Jet to my planet, and then once Jet and I are on the same planet, I could then activate Jet's ability as the Spike player. So that's why you want to use all of the characters that come in the game, no matter how many players you're actually playing with. So we know how to play cards, and we know how to buy cards. Other things that you can do on your turn, you can move. So you can spend fuel from your character board to move to a planet. How much it costs is indicated on the bottom of the planet. It always costs 1 to get to the Bebop. But these other planets do have things that happen that cause their fuel cost to increase. So you would spend fuel to go to a certain planet, and then once you are on a planet, you can then decide to interact with the criminals that are on that planet. So for example here, I would send Spike to over here to this planet to interact with Morgan. Now, when you play these criminals, each criminal has a certain number of tokens on their card based on this number here on the left. So there's 2 different types of tokens. The red circle area here, that indicates how much damage you would need to do, or how many attack action points you'd need to do in order to attack Morgan. So for each 1 damage you do, you could collect a token from him, and he has 2 tokens total. So we're going to put 2 tokens on Morgan here on this side. Same thing over here on the right, but this is investigation. So you need 2 investigation to collect 1 token. So it's a little bit more difficult than just fighting. And he also has 2. So the question you may be asking yourself is, well, why would I do investigation when I can just do damage? Well, the reason is because when you do damage to Morgan, Morgan does damage back to you. So anytime that you take a token away from Morgan, from his little damage side over here, or his health, I think it's called resistance in this game. So whenever you take a token from his resistance pool over here, he does a damage back to you. And that's when you would take one of these damage cards and put it into your deck, which fills your deck with bad stuff. And remember, we want our deck to be full of good stuff. So that's kind of the trade-off. It's always easier to attack than to investigate. However, attacking will deal damage back to you. So for each one of these tokens that you collect, once the criminal has been captured, you then turn these tokens in for victory points. Also, some of the criminals themselves are worth victory points. The starter ones are always worth 0, but the others are usually worth 1 victory point. So Morgan here, he's either going to be worth 2 or 2, or he could be worth 3 if you, say, took 1 from investigation and then 3 from here. Because once a criminal no longer has any tokens in one of their categories here, he is considered captured, and whoever took the last token gets to take the criminal. There's also a chance that the criminal could escape. Like I said, there are ways for the fuel cost to increase on a planet. If the fuel cost on a planet is ever at 3, and then the game forces you to increase it again, the criminal escapes. It resets back to 1, and then anyone who collected tokens from that criminal loses them. They're worth no victory points at all. So you want to try and capture the criminals before they escape if you're trying to collect those particular tokens. Of course, if my opponent's over here and I'm over here, I may want this guy to escape so that he loses the tokens he's collected, whereas I want to protect my criminal and make sure that, because basically you're just trying to prove to the other members of the Bebop here that you are the best bounty hunter. So you purchase cards, you move around the planets, you confront and capture criminals by doing damage and or completing investigations to capture the criminals, and you do this until endgame. And endgame is when Vicious comes out. He will be one of the last 3 cards, and he has, as you can see, a much bigger pool. He also has his own miniature, and he's going to travel around from planet to planet. He's not going to stay in one spot like the other criminals. And if you can manage to capture him, he'll be worth many tokens, as you can see here, and also worth 2 victory points if you are the one that captures him. However, he deals 2 damage to you every time you receive damage back. And if he manages to escape, then the game ends, and you have to play from there. So, and that, guys, is how you play Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade. One more quick thing I want to talk about before I give you my final thoughts. Like I mentioned earlier, just a huge shout out to whoever designed this box insert. Like, dude, whoever you are, you get a gold star, because this is just fantastic and something they did not have to do. I wish more games did. You got slots for all your cards with plenty of room to upgrade for future expansions. Nice little place for all your miniatures, so when you do paint them up, you're not going to feel like they're going to take any damage. And then everything else fits so perfectly inside over here on the right hand side. So you have all your planets, the Bebop, all of your character cards, your other little cardstock things here, all your tokens, your victory tokens, the little tokens here, your standees, and then, like I said, the big shot board, which doesn't even have to be broken down. It's the little things, man, and this little thing right here just puts a huge smile on my face. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see more developers do something like this in the future, because it's just awesome. I may be a little biased because I love deck building games and I love card games in general, but there really is honestly nothing bad I can say about this game. Gameplay is very smooth. All the characters seem very balanced. The cards seem very balanced. The mechanics are unique. They're different. The models, the miniatures, are top quality considering this is a board game and not a miniatures game. You're really going to be surprised by that, pleasantly surprised. Even the box is top notch, and the organization that comes in it. Again, there's really nothing bad I can say about this. This is definitely a must-have for all fans of card games, deck builders, and of course, Cowboy Bebop. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Really helps us out a lot. Make sure to share it with your family, friends, and your nerdy communities. If you have any games that you want to see us have here on the channel, then just let us know in the comment section down below. And if you have any videos that you would like featured on our page, if you want to collaborate with us, you can reach us on any one of our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Circle of Nerds. Also, don't forget that we have a podcast that comes out on Tuesdays called The Cosmic Disaster Show. You can find that right here on YouTube or anywhere that you enjoy listening to podcasts. And for an extra bit of love and affection to us here at the Circle of Nerds, please consider checking us out over on Patreon at patreon.com/circleofnerds. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. I will see you in the next video.